Hello, guys. Today we've got a very special guest. We've got the CEO of Bird.Money, Daniel Stevens, and this guy is a rock star. If there is anything in the crypto space like that, I mean, he's been in the data science industry for like 15 years, and he's also in the Guinness World Book of Records, right? So talk about being able to handle different stuff in life. And so we're going to be talking about Bird.Money, and it's a project that I think has massive potential, and hopefully we can all learn about it. And yeah, let's get started. Hello, Daniel.
Hey, David, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Appreciate the intro. It's not too often I get acquainted to rock star status.
Oh, rocks are definitely. I mean, the stuff, the achievements that you've done, amazing stuff. You've done a lot of amazing stuff, and right now you're leading in the space. I don't know what to call it, right? DeFi or what is it exactly? Anyway, we'll learn about it as we go. Anyway, yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, right? Because I don't think I did you justice in this little intro.
Well, there's quite a hook with the Guinness Book of World Records comment, so I guess I'll get to that in a second. So as you said, I've been in data science for about 15 years, worked in all different types of roles. I've been individual contributor, so I'm a programmer myself. I've led teams of data scientists, worked for large companies like Google, worked for small companies that you've probably never heard of. Done a lot of contract work as well, industry and academia. So I've got a pretty wide range of skills in the data science field, but Bird is definitely putting all that to the test. We are doing some really interesting things. And just to sort of put people's curiosity to rest, I am not in the Guinness Book of World Records for data science, at least. I'm an amateur scuba diver in my free time whenever that actually happens. And I participated in the largest ever scuba dive beach cleanup. There was about 650 divers that all went off the beach to clean up the ocean. So it was a lot of fun. It was pretty intense to see 600 divers all in one spot, but it was really cool. And it's a nice little cocktail party story too, to say you're in the Guinness Book.
Well, I mean, not many people can say that, right? Not many people can say that they're in the Guinness Books of Records, right?
Well, as long as we're in strange storyland. I also competed in the national championship of rock, paper, scissors on ESPN.
Amazing stuff. Okay, let's jump into Bird, right? Tell us about Bird. What is it, right? That's a simple explanation. What is Bird?
So Bird is a new type of decentralized oracle. So I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard of Chainlink, and they can deliver you price feeds and random numbers. And you've even got some projects out there like API 3 that are exposing data sets to the kind of on-chain immutability that you get from blockchain. Bird is the next evolution of all of this. We're exposing machine learning prediction products in a turnkey fashion through a decentralized oracle. So we're a new type of oracle, and the vision that we see for Web3 going forward is that developers are going to want to create the same kind of customized user experience that we see right now on the biggest Web2 platforms like Facebook and Google. And we think that we can allow developers to build those kind of tools by accessing our machine learning analytics directly from an oracle.
Okay, yeah. So you spoke about Chainlink and API 3. Now, these are also different other oracles, exactly. How is Bird different from these other protocols?
Yeah, so I think the key difference is the data that you can get out of the oracle itself. So with Chainlink, Chainlink's probably the easiest example, but I'm not picking on them in particular. So if you're a developer and you're building a decentralized application and you want to get a price for an asset and you want to get it from an on-chain source so that it's trusted, you can get that from Chainlink. For Bird, you can get a machine learning prediction product. So one of the best ways to kind of explain what this could look like is through some of the products that we're actually building right now. One of the ones that we're in the middle of building is an investor score. And so you can imagine that if you hook up your wallet to a launchpad through a machine learning prediction that Bird creates, you'll be able to, as a developer, offer variable investment terms. So if you're the type of developer that goes in and connects or trades for short periods of time, and you kind of dump your tokens a lot, you're quote unquote a bad investor. And so for that kind of investor, maybe you want to charge a higher price so that you can attract the best investors. And that's something that a developer will be able to do with Bird's machine learning products.
Okay. So you're combining both oracles and machine learning, right?
Yep.
And
Exactly.
using it to implement to help for different use cases, like what you're saying, like for example, investors. You can give a score for different investors, and it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
one of the biggest problems that we've had in crypto, right? I think most people can relate, right? When you buy a token and then maybe bots or some other people come in, they pump up the price. They come and buy up as many coins as they can, and everyone is excited in the community that, okay, guys, we're going to the moon. And then those investors dump on everybody, right? They dump on everybody, and everyone is wrecked. And so with Bird, you'll be able to project will be able to give a score to different investors. So those investors that we don't want, that pump and dump coins that we don't want, they get to pay a higher price to get into tokens. And the good investors, those that hodl, or those that.
Exactly. So you can imagine that what we'll do is we'll build machine learning models that predict how long you'll hold your investment. And the people that are predicted to hold their investment the longest are the ones that will receive the best investment terms. And that'll make it harder for the types that like to dump their coins as soon as they can to really influence the price for an early stage project.
Yeah. I think that's a very important that's an important use case that I don't see many people working on. I do think that it's important to reward those people who are part of the community, who are working hard and trying to build long-term value, because most people, they do want to just get rich quick. And this technology, I don't think it's all about that, right? I mean, if it's a whole new paradigm. It's a new way of doing things that we're moving towards. So we definitely need long-term investors more than anything else. And but as far as I'm concerned, right, I haven't seen anyone working on these kind of use cases that you're talking about, right? There are oracles out there, like you said, Chainlink and API3, but no one is really working on these products, like for example, to kind of safeguard both investors and different projects so that they have long-term sustainability. I don't see many projects working on that. And do you have any who's competing with you right now?
To be honest with you, David, we're not aware of anyone that is looking at solving this problem the same way that we are. And I think to really understand the true potential, we kind of need to zoom out a little bit, because our investor score is a really interesting application and we're excited to bring it to market, but it's only one of a myriad different scoring products that we're looking to develop. And all of them, they all fit under this umbrella of creating an online user experience that's individualized, right? So when you log into your Facebook account, your feed looks different than anyone else's feed. And it's because Facebook builds prediction models to decide, what do you want to see? So in the case of our investor score, we're building a prediction product that tries to understand how long you'll hold a token, but we're also looking at things like e-commerce prospecting scores, so that if you hook up your wallet to an e-commerce platform that's Web3 enabled, that platform can start delivering tailored search results to you. I've done this experiment a couple of times with people, and if you log into shopping.io and you log in with a wallet that's empty and you search for a watch, you're going to get all kinds of different results, a $10 watch and a $1,000 watch. But then if you go and you log in again with a wallet that's got, $1 million in it, you get those same search results. Then you got to ask yourself, why are you showing a millionaire a $10 watch? Web 2 figured that out already. Web 3 is going to figure it out too. And Bird's goal is to be positioned to empower these developers to start creating these individualized user experiences. But yeah, I mean, honestly, David, we're not aware of anyone that's looking at this problem the same way we are, and that sees that vision for a customized user experience on Web3 interfaces, that sees it the same way we do.
And is there any reason why other developers or teams are not working on this very important problem that you guys are working on?
This is just speculation, but I think the reasonable explanation here is the simple one, which is these apps are all new. If you roll back the clock to, the late 90s and you start looking at the beginning of, Web 2 interfaces in early 2000s, they weren't highly customized at that point either, because it's all brand new.
Yeah.
So I think what we're going to see is that Web 3 apps, they kind of follow the same life cycle that Web 2 apps did, which is right now, people are just trying to be first to market with a cool new product. And eventually they're going to have to compete with other platforms. And how does a platform compete with another platform? Well, it competes on user experience, and that's it. If you have a better experience on one website, you'll use that website over all others. So I think right now the answer to your question is just that these apps are all brand new. And so they're in their sort of first generation. And when those second and third generation apps come out, that's when there's going to be major demand for the type of machine learning power that we're building now.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of exciting stuff that you said. So this technology you're building will help investors who want to invest in different projects, and it'll do a lot of other things, right? It'll help customized user experience in the decentralized world, right? Like shopping.io and all those other examples. Now, the tech that you're building, is it is it proprietary, or will it be open source?
So we're still working on that question. I think over the long term, the answer is it'll probably be entirely decentralized. We definitely see the benefits of decentralized technologies allowing us to create a brand new type of predictive analytics ecosystem that just doesn't exist today. But initially we're being very practical. We have our own internal team of engineers working on these problems, and we're obviously building a lot of these models on our own architecture first. But there's also companies out there like TrueBit that are creating the ability for highly complex calculations to be performed on a blockchain. So we see sort of an evolution where you can start with something that's a bit more centralized in our development and our deployment, and start moving towards something that is truly decentralized and gives all community members access to pretty much every aspect of what we're doing. But even in the middle of that process, one of the things that we want to address is the centralized control that a lot of these big tech companies have, right? They decide what goes into their models. They decide what they're going to charge for people to use those models. We think that we can use blockchain to start chipping away at those problems. So one of the things that Bird's building is a DAO, so that we can start seeding certain operational questions to the community, so they can actually vote and say, this is the kind of data I want in my model, or this is how we think that this should be monetized, those kinds of things. These algorithms, they affect our lives in such deep and surprising ways that, I think there's really no possibility that we end up on a path in the future that keeps these powerful algorithms behind these walls and inside these black boxes, because it's just too impactful for our lives. And eventually people are just going to get fed up. And Bird is trying to get out ahead of that curve. We want to start building the kind of ecosystem that can be sustainable into the future, because these prediction products are so useful. We can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater just because the process that these big tech company uses today to build these really cool things is suboptimal. Bird is trying to learn how to build that same kind of useful product in a far better and more ethical and fair way.
It is important to do it in a more fair way and more open way. But the problem of having open source and proprietary, I think, is a difficult one as well. Because I mean, if you look at Uniswap, the first version, I think in the second, they were all open source and everyone copied them. And people created billion-dollar cryptocurrencies from just copy and paste, So I don't know if that's good or if that's not good, but I do see some value in having some things proprietary and some things open. I do see value in both of those. Yeah,
and that's probably the toughest balancing act that we're going to need to walk in the early days, is trying to decide what is truly proprietary and what should be open. We know that there are some ways to obfuscate the more sensitive aspects of our work and still have it be a bit open. But the other thing to realize, David, is that with a business that depends on creating predictions using data, there's a massive network effect that the first mover into the space gets, right? Like that's why there's only one Google out there.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They're the only ones capable of doing it because they've built this massive funnel to collect and analyze all this data, and it's just tremendously expensive to catch up to them because of the lead that they've created. And that's why I think it's so important that Bird is so ahead of its time in this space. You know, we're going to have the ability to get a major head start, and because it takes a lot of data and a lot of resources to create these kind of predictions, it gives us, you know, a huge advantage over the people that are going to come after us. You know, once these apps start growing up and start becoming, they start demanding the kind of user experience that is only enabled by data mining like this.
Yeah, yeah. You spoke about one important thing, network effects, right? So if you look at Google, Facebook, these are companies that you want to disrupt, but they've got massive network effects, right? And of course, your products helps people, but how do you disrupt that? How do you disrupt those network effects? Because people, despite the fact that obviously they definitely mine people's data for profit, but people don't seem to be complaining, right? So how do you break those network effects and also educate people on the importance of maybe having developers adopt something like a Bird?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of big questions in that one. So let's unpack it a little bit. I think the first thing I want to make totally clear is we don't see Bird, at least anywhere in the short term, as being a competitor to a Facebook or a Google. You know, we're not trying to build platforms that'll directly compete with them. And frankly, I think for a period of time, we're going to see Web3 and Web2 coexist because there's going to be a class of users that is just not really comfortable or not really interested yet in moving on to a Web3 interface. And that'll be the case for a little while. But you know, as far as you know, how does Bird create, you know, its own network effects? You know, we're going to do that by creating these data pipelines that will be difficult for others to build, building these products that will be difficult for others to build, and getting them out into the market, you know, before others do.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And so okay, so some of your products, right? You spoke first about helping investors, right? And I think you started off earlier on with having a product for lending, is it?
Yep, credit scores.
Oh, credit scores. So you've got credit scores, and then you've got trust scores for investors as well.
Yeah, and I think trust is really just it's a bit of a euphemism here. You know, we use it as a broad term to describe, you know, characteristics of a user via their wallet. So, you know, for us, we're going to build a lot of different types of machine learning models, but I think all of them do fall under that umbrella of trying to sort of qualify what a person is interested in, what their tendencies are, what kind of behaviors they're likely to engage in a way that's just a version of trust. So the three products that we're looking at right now, and we've already kind of mentioned here, which is a credit scoring product, a Launchpad investor scoring product, and e-commerce prospect scoring products. All of them have immediate use cases today, which is the reason why we're looking at those first. But one of the cool things about building these kinds of businesses is that there are major economies to scale of the data architecture itself. You know, once we build out the pipeline to develop one of them, it's a lot easier to start developing the other products off of it because the data is often very, very similar.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So you'll be they'll all be tied in together at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a development perspective, yeah, there's a ton of overlap. Like I said, to build a data set that is used to create a model for an investor score, you know, we're scraping blockchain data, we're building new variables off of that data. It's the same sort of process when we want to do an e-commerce score. We're scraping blockchain data, we're building variables off that data. And in fact, you know, one of the things that strikes me, David, is maybe we should just back up real quick and just talk about data science at a really high level and sort of how these products are built. Do you think that would be useful?
Yeah, not at a high level.
Oh, you want to go into the weeds? All right.
Yeah, just yes, that would be very useful. But yeah, maybe bring it. Obviously, not high tech.
Yeah, let's keep it simple for now. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
ultimately, I think all data science problems, there's sort of four major steps to it.
yeah,
Your first step is to define the problem itself. What are you trying to predict? Why are you trying to predict it? We're a for-profit research company essentially, so we need to make sure that we understand why we're doing it, and the why is often to solve a business problem. So
yeah.
the second step is to assess what kind of data are out there that can be useful for this particular problem.
Mhm.
So in our case, we're going to look at mostly on-chain data initially because
Okay.
there's a huge amount of it and it's right there and it's in the public.
Yeah.
The third step after creating the data sets is to train the models, which is really just giving these models the ability to find patterns in the data. And those patterns are what you sort of combine together to make a final prediction. So for an investor score, maybe it's a score between 0 and 100. And maybe that score is a probability that the person will hold their investment for more than 1 year. So we could say there's a 78% probability that the investor is going to hold their tokens for 1 year. And then that leaves the fourth step, which is actually deploying the model. So you need to take that thing that you built in a research setting and you need to now cast it in a more production setting so that people like engineers that are building these websites, they can actually use the product that you've built. So at a high level, all modeling processes, they're all pretty much the same. You decide what you're doing, you get your data together, you build and select your best model, and then you put that model into production.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I understand. I understand. And obviously, I think as someone who's worked in Google before, you understand how powerful this technology is. And for me, one of the best use cases, right, is in terms of credit, and especially under collateralized loans. I think that's a very, very important thing that uh, I hope we get solved pretty quickly, because if you look at okay, just on the sidelines, right, the best capital is very, very important for economic growth. And if you are able to give under collateralized loans, think about how many entrepreneurs, like mostly possibly in many poor countries that don't have a lot of venture capital in them. Think about how many entrepreneurs you could fund if you can deliver decentralized under collateralized loans. I think that's a very, very powerful thing, and I think it does tie into data and analytics, as you have explained here, that you're able to take data and then you're able to make predictions with that data. That okay, I do think that this one they will pay back, and I do think it will reinforce itself over time, because obviously people do, at least there's obviously more good actors than bad out there, and I do think that they'll make it a point to pay back the loans, and all, but obviously you will have the data backing that up.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I really couldn't have said it better myself. I think microfinance and being able to deliver capital to under and unserved regions of the world is probably one of the greatest benefits that blockchain is going to produce
yeah,
in the
yeah,
immediate future. And I think that's one of the reasons why our ideas very quickly made it to this level of like the sort of most cutting edge statistical rigor that you can put out there, because like you said, it's a big important problem to solve. If you look in the credit space, there's at least a half a dozen major projects out there that are trying to build the equivalent of a credit score on chain, but few, if any of them, are actually using the best practices that have been developed in centralized finance for the last 60, 70 years. And that's very rigorous statistical modeling. That's really the genesis of us focusing in so heavily on machine learning and blockchain. Is we saw this credit opportunity, we saw what the competitors were doing, and we said, wait a second, everyone's kind of missing the message here. I have a background in finance as well. I've built risk models in financial companies, and so it would be crazy for those companies to use the kind of methods that a lot of these blockchain companies are starting to look at with credit. But it's a really big problem to solve.
Is there any reason why most of these big centralized finance institutions don't use these models if they already exist?
So centralized finance uses statistics.
Okay.
The first centralized credit score made by the Fair Isaac Company in like the 50s was a statistical model, and really ever since then, statistics has been used primarily in these risk-based studies. So insurance, banking, all of those fields, they are. In fact, that's where I got my start in statistics, is working for an R&D department in an insurance company. You know, our job was to look through millions and millions of records of data and try to predict how likely it was that somebody would get in a car accident. That kind of process has been used in various forms of finance for 50, 60 years. It's blockchain and the credit companies that are being built on blockchain that are not really using some of those best practices.
Okay. How accurate were the models? I mean, you spoke about something that I would think is not connected to statistics, like being able to measure if how likely the likelihood of someone being in an accident, right? I think that would be difficult. How accurate are those models?
Well, I mean, listen, they're accurate enough to have these insurance companies making billions of dollars every year. They're surprisingly accurate, and I think that the important thing to take away from that process is what we're really doing is we're saying in aggregate how much money is an insurance company going to have to pay out in losses. So some of the predictions it makes are going to be accurate, and some will be less accurate. But in total, the idea is that they can make a normal return on any money that they spend. So you know, I think you'd be really surprised. I'm assuming this isn't proprietary knowledge or that someone from Google isn't listening, but even going as far back as 2012, just based on your browsing history alone, Google could predict your gender, your age, many of your preferences to a 96% accuracy. So
That is amazing. That is
incredible.
amazing.
It's really incredible.
Hey, that's surprising, and that they could predict it in 2012. So imagine what they can do now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so I would imagine that there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. Definitely.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. And I think it's even more exciting to consider how their data are different than blockchain data, right? Like if you're Google, for example, you know, while you have the ability to cookie people's browsers and you can get an understanding of maybe a bit of what they've done by using cookies, you know, people can destroy their cookies. There can be multiple people that use the same browser. There's all kinds of ways that their data can get really dirty when you move off site. You know, if it's just Google search, then obviously their data is very rich. But now consider blockchain. If I interact with one website on a Web3 interface, there's going to be records of that on the blockchain. And then when I move to a new site and I interact with that site, there's going to be records on the blockchain. So we're going to be like when Web3 really starts reaching its full potential and there's a heavy degree of usage, the data that is on chain for people like Bird to use to build these machine learning products is going to be the first of its kind in the world, because we're going to have a clear, perfectly accurate record of everything that's happened on the blockchain with a given user's wallet. And so I think we're going to be able to create more interesting and more accurate predictions using Web3 architecture than Web2 has really ever been able to do. And granted, like we have a long way to go. Right now, the type of transaction that gets recorded on chain is it's a bit sparse, right? Like it's only really a financial transaction for the most part. But over time, it's very likely that we'll have a lot more granularity in the way that people interact with websites on the blockchain for people like Bird to data mine.
Yeah. But the way you explain the technology and what the capabilities that Google has, it's really powerful. And the question that comes to my mind is, okay, what can people do, right, to empower themselves? Because I don't know if I think that this should definitely be in the hands of like a decentralized entity, and having this kind of power in the hands of a corporation, I don't think that's the best strategy. I don't think that's the best thing. But what can people do, right?
So, I mean, I think the most important thing is people should do their own research and start understanding how this space really operates. I think there's this misconception that when you log into Facebook or you log into Google, there's like a little wizard in the background that's just changing things on your website. But no, that's not it. It's huge amounts of data, large teams of very talented data scientists that are building algorithms, and those algorithms fuel everything. And I think when you start learning about where algorithms are in our lives, it really opens your eyes to just how pervasive data is in people's lives. And to me, that's always the starting point. You need to motivate the desire to learn by first realizing how big and powerful all this stuff is. But once somebody starts realizing, once that light bulb moment happens, there's all kinds of things that you can do to either protect yourself from that kind of oversight, or, in my case, I'm okay with some of my data being used for these purposes, because I would prefer to have an experience that's tailored just to me. Now, do I think a company should be able to make billions of dollars in profit off of it, and all I get in return is a free Gmail account? No, I think we've gone way out of line with something like that. But you can download browsers like DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo is a privacy-centric browser that doesn't record any information whatsoever. It's become much more popular in the last few years. I think it's actually the second most popular web browser in the United States on mobile platforms now, which I was really stunned to hear. They've gone through absolute exponential growth. And it's those kind of signals that are what tell Bird and our leadership that we're onto something big here. People are starting to learn how valuable their data are and how important it is to treat it fairly and responsibly. And I think it's only a matter of time until that's a commonplace discussion. If I talk to my parents about this kind of stuff now, they think I'm a tinfoil hat crazy person. And you give it enough time, and everybody is going to start coming onto this bandwagon. But for now, I think the most important advice I give is just go out there and learn how this ecosystem really works, so that you can make your own decisions for how you feel about your place in it. Because you can be the type of person that says, no, I don't want any oversight. I don't want anyone seeing my data. Or you can be the type of person that says, yeah, sure, take it all. I don't care. I don't have any value. Or you can be somewhere in the middle, which is kind of where I am personally.
Yeah, that's good. So we have Johnny's asking, how far has Bird progressed? Tell us the difference between Bird now and, let's say, 8 months ago, and what are the future development? What's the future development for Bird?
That's a great question. So Bird now versus Bird in the beginning. I think what we've done is we've started with a narrow target, and we said, okay, on-chain analytics and off-chain data streams, they're going to be important to blockchain. And that was kind of the period at the end of the sentence. We didn't yet really know precisely how they would be important, or how Bird could carve out a specific strategic niche for itself. But we have always known that analytics has been at the core of what Bird's ethos is. And I think over time, and having conversations internally and with other partners, what we've come to realize is Web3 right now is just in that first stage that we talked about before. And the subsequent stages are going to lead to an environment where there's a whole bunch of different launch pads, and they're all competing for traffic. How are they going to compete? Through customized user experience. How is the customized user experience created? Well, it's created through data mining and creating behavioral prediction products. So I think the progress that we've made is really starting with a bit more of a general vision of, we're an analytics company. We're going to create on and off chain analytics. And we've moved into a space that's highly focused. We know exactly which products we're building. We have a very clear picture of what we think the future is going to look like for blockchain. And that's actually been resonating really well with our partners, investors that we speak to, really anyone that's curious, what do you do all day? Now that you kind of frame it and say, well, Web 2 has grown up following this particular trajectory. Why wouldn't Web 3 follow that same trajectory? Okay, well, if it does, somebody is going to need to create these machine learning prediction products. And that's what Bird is now focused on doing. So as far as our future development goes, I think it's fairly self-evident from what we've described. We are deep in the weeds of the research that it takes to build these prediction models. We've also been expanding to other chains because obviously if you're a Solana developer, you're going to build a website or a dApp on the Solana network. Oracle needs to be on the Solana network for you to take advantage of those products. So I think our goals are pretty twofold. One, continue researching and building the models that are going to create these products that we'll bring to market. And two, start building on the chains that are most compelling for the developers. We need to build where other people are building, essentially, because other builders are the ones that are going to use our products.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I'm sure John is very, very satisfied with that answer. And sorry. Yeah. You spoke about partnerships, right? And obviously your product is a business to business because you want developers to come and adopt Bird so that they can use Bird's technology to access the analytics oracles there. So who are the partners that you're working with, and who are the partners that you hope to work with in future? And
Yeah, so one of the partners that we work heavily with now on our investor score is CyberFi. They're one of the original partners that Bird established, and they're very eager to start innovating in the launchpad space and using our investor score. We work very closely with those guys, and they actually help with some of the product design questions. We use them as a sounding board quite a bit. So I'd say they're one of our closest partners when it comes to developing these products. Our partners, Parseek, they have a really cool tech stack that will allow us to build our production environment more efficiently. So for example, they have a triggering system, an event-based trigger system. So one of the most expensive parts of doing anything on chain is obviously just committing data to the chain because it costs money. We can use their event-based triggering system to be more efficient with our production environment. We've got people like Moon Tools and Uniwhales that build wallet explorers. They've already integrated our products, and we think that there's a lot more potential to use them as dashboarding, essentially. If we want to be open about these scores and how they're being built and all that stuff, well, one of the most important things is just to let people see their own score. So right now, when you log into Moon Tools and you connect your wallet, you actually see sort of a precursor Bird score, and we'll build out dashboarding functionality like that to allow other users to see, their own scores and kind of understand what went into them. I think when we consider future partnerships, we're really focused on those three areas in blockchain. So credit, launchpads, and e-commerce. So conversations with the big lenders out there are ones that we're very much looking forward to and starting to kind of corral resources for. There's lots of launchpads out there. We're talking to new ones sort of almost 2 or 3 times a week at this point. E-commerce is a newer area, I think, in blockchain. There's not a ton of Web3 shopping platforms out there, at least ones that are getting much traffic. But some of our team is actually connected to the folks at shopping.io, and so we hope to be able to deliver them some useful products relatively soon. At the end of the day, David, our partnerships we're always very selective. We get requests all the time from companies that they sort of just want to associate with Bird, And I can understand the desire to do that, whether it's Bird or any other project, but we want to make sure that when we sign a deal with a company to partner with them, there's a clear reason to do it, right? They can benefit from our stuff, we can benefit from their stuff, or ideally both.
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah. And Sheikh is asking, when is Bird.Money coming to Cardano network? I understand Bird, you're already on Solana and on the Binance Smart Chain as well, which I think is very, very important. I mean, considering right now, sometimes Ethereum does get expensive. Sometimes I think the prices, the fees right now, they should be okay-ish, but sometimes they do get really, really expensive. So I think it's really important that you're available both on Solana and on the Binance Smart Chain. So when Cardano?
So I mean, it's been what, like 2.5 days since smart contracts are. I appreciate the eagerness, but we don't have an immediate plan in the next couple of weeks to go live on Cardano. Personally, and I'm not really speaking for the company at this point, I'm very excited to see what Cardano can do. I think they took a very different development path than Ethereum did, with a very similar goal in mind, and it's going to be illustrative to see, in a couple of months, well, where did that different path get Charles and his team? So as far as Cardano goes, I think the official answer is we're in a wait and see. We want to see exactly what Cardano sort of grows up to be. And the reason that's important is because for us, we want to make sure that we have a thesis statement for every network that we go on to. It's not just like, oh, this network popped up, let's get on it. It's expensive and it's time consuming and it spreads your resources to go on to a new network. So you have to have a good plan to do it. I think the projects out there that are sort of scattershot getting onto every network, there's some consequences to that. And, if they've weighed those consequences internally and they've come up with that as being a good idea, then great. But for Bird, that's not the case. So, Ethereum is obviously just a normal starting point because, a year ago, it was definitely the biggest game in town. And I don't think there was as much chatter about, Ethereum killers and some of these alternate networks being important yet. So that's obviously where we started. And personally, I think that Ethereum is going to have a big name in crypto for a while. But I do think that Binance and Solana are particularly interesting networks for Bird. And I also think that it's not common for people to step back and sort of understand, well, what are their unique strengths outside of the technicals, right? Like we know Binance is relatively decentralized, very low transaction fees, fairly quick transaction confirmations. Solana is a bit more decentralized, ultra fast, ultra cheap. Everyone knows that stuff. But I think the better question to ask is, well, why does that particular set of technical characteristics, why does that suggest a different future for each of those networks? And that's the question that we ask internally when we vet a new network for interoperability is, where do we think they'll be in a few years? Who do we think will be using those networks in a few years? And are those users the type of people that we think Bird needs to interact with? And I do think that, especially in the case of Binance, I think people are very quick to sort of say it was just like a knockoff copy of Ethereum, and it, future. And, in a long time horizon, we'll have to see. I'm not going to sit here and try to predict what the crypto world's going to look like in a couple of years. But in the immediate future, Binance is where retail is. There's a high degree of small users making transactions on there. And if you think about a data science company, that's really important because we need large volumes of data to use the most complex models out there. So the fact that there are a lot of users, retail users, and there are a lot of transactions, a lot of activity on there, that's actually a really good place for Bird to be if you consider the fact that we're building user behavior prediction products. So obviously on Binance Smart Chain, there's a lot of users. That makes a lot of sense for us. Solana, on the other hand, I think our bet is that we're going to see a lot of enterprise development on Solana. Solana is very fast, it's very cheap, it is sufficiently decentralized. But one of the things I think is most important and that kind of goes under the radar is Solana is predictable. We can say in 6 months or a year with a high degree of certainty what that network will be capable of doing. Ethereum, Love the development team. They've done some incredible things, but I mean, what are we, 3 years late now on like Ethereum 2 or something like that? That's incredibly important when you are leading a big company and you want to make the switch to blockchain. If you take all of your tech resources and you go through your roadmap to make sure that you're ready to hop on the blockchain, and then you find out your partners that are building on the blockchain side, they're a year behind in their roadmap, well, you've just sunk millions of dollars into a project that is not going to go live now. So predictability is incredibly important for enterprise and corporate development. And Solana's got that nailed, I think, better than most, if not any other blockchain out there. So we look at Binance Smart Chain and Solana as covering a really wide swath of ground for Bird. We have a lot of users and we build user predictions. That's Binance Smart Chain. But we think there's going to be a lot of big business and a lot of enterprise development that's going to happen on Solana. And well, we're a B2B company. So those two chains have been picked very deliberately. And I think when it comes to Cardano, we just need to see exactly what market sector, that chain is going to fill before we make decisions to start moving on to it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And like you said, smart contracts are new to Cardano, right? So meaning, I would imagine, obviously I don't know. I would imagine that there aren't that many developer tools out there yet, and it's still being built. It's still early days, and it hasn't been really battle tested like Ethereum, for example. So I do think it's early days, but from what you're saying, I would imagine you're saying if there is massive demand for it and you get on, is that what am I right or am I wrong?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there. Can you repeat the
question? Okay, sorry. I'm saying that from what you're saying, I imagine you're saying that if there's a lot of demand for having Cardano, you will go on. Or am I right by saying that?
Yeah, I think demand is one of the tests that we need to test. I think it's demand, but it's also demand for our products specifically. So there's, for example, there's a ton of demand with certain layer 2s. But if there are no launch pads and credit platforms and e-com platforms, or a lot of big enterprise development, or a high degree of long tail retail users using it, well, there could be a lot of demand, but it could be the wrong demand for Bird. So I think it's a slightly more nuanced question, but at the end of the day, demand is a very important part. And if you don't mind, I actually really like this question. Do you mind if we actually answer it?
Which question?
What will the cost for Bird analytics cost?
Okay. I'm sorry. I think I missed it. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's right here. Yeah. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah. So nobody's asking about us. I love that name. Nobody. Somebody named Nobody is asking us to talk about our pricing. And it's, the reason I want to talk about that is it's one of the areas that we're really trying to introduce some innovation. Before we talked about how this stuff happens in Web 2.0 with people like Google and Facebook. Well, ultimately, if you are the only option in the market for this, then you have a monopoly. And when you have a monopoly, you get to set your own prices, regardless of what demand is out there, or what users think, or what buyers think about it. We see an opportunity to allow open market pricing for our analytics products, because we can essentially make them tradable in a way. And by making them tradable, people can set their own prices for them. And I think that's a really important aspect of our ecosystem. I don't want to go into too many technical details because they're either still being developed or a bit proprietary. But by setting our prices to be an open market mechanism, we can allow, again, a much more sustainable model into the future. Because at the end of the day, if the price of a product is set by an open market with proper sort of competitive pressures, then you can't be criticized of having too much power. And I think that's the main criticism that you get levied against the Googles and the Facebooks and these major tech companies is they have too much power. Well, we want to give some of that power back to the marketplace, and so setting our product pricing as an open market mechanism is really important to Bird. So we can't say exactly how much it's going to cost because it's going to be up to the market.
Yeah. I think it's an important question that he asked, and the answer is really, really powerful. So you want to make them tradable. That's
That's the
yeah.
effect. That's the effect. I don't see us actually sort of like, I don't know, using an
Okay.
NFT or something like that. And
The
like I
free
said, I
market
don't
will be
want to
fine.
go. That's the idea is free market price discovery. We have some specific ideas and plans for how that can happen. But again, I don't want to go into too much detail because they're either in R&D still or it's a bit proprietary. But that's one of the major objectives of our go-to-market strategy is to allow for free market price discovery of our products rather than us particularly setting them. And that could also be a blended approach with a DAO being also able to set certain prices or at least determine how resources are being used.
Yeah. That's cool. John is asking again. So about, are you planning on partner with shopping.io and curate copyright? Also, what is the use case for Bird? For instance, you get link tokens for providing price feeds. What's the use case for Bird? Yeah, I think
So
I did the shopping. I think you answered the shopping.io question before, I
yeah,
think. Yeah. So
yeah.
what's the use case for Bird?
So the use case for Bird is a governance token. So again, we are still identifying exactly what rights and responsibilities will be bestowed because you hold a token. One of the reasons why we're careful about that is because it does have legal ramifications, exactly what you say your token does. But I think that's the use case of the Bird token. It's a governance token, and it will confer rights and responsibilities. As far as the link comparison, we are going to have incentives on the network to create desire and demand for operating nodes, for perhaps even participating in some of the data curation and data management processes. We are going to, in a way, crowdsource some of this and use blockchain technology strengths in that area to still deliver a superior product when it comes to the quality of the data that our researchers are using.
Yeah. So again, on the utility of the token, obviously, when you're providing these oracles and all these other services, the lending and the launchpad services, there's going to be some income earned from that. Do token holders get any of the action?
Can't answer that yet. We got a whole bunch of lawyers that will be having brain aneurysm if I answer that question right now. We're working out those details. At the end of the day, and this is an interesting segue, regulation is both coming and it is necessary. It needs to be smart regulation, but we don't believe that the average crypto company is going to be able to duck the regulators a year or two from now. There's just too much wealth moving around. This is too important of a technology to expect that we're just going to get to self-regulate. As much as that would be great because we could just build and shoot first and ask questions later. Bird has chosen to approach that problem right away. So we are working with lawyers. We're making sure that we have all of the sort of proper structure in place so that we can work with regulators. And when we build these amazing products, we're not going to start getting all these cease and desist letters from regulators and ending up in court or something like that. So there's a few times where I'm going to have to, essentially sort of put my lawyer hat on and say, I can't answer that yet, but we are working on it. That's one of them. We need to have proper incentives in place. That's a must. How they are designed has legal implications. So we need to make sure we're answering those questions properly.
Yeah. That's very, very important. But if you take a look at the tokenomics, they're very, very interesting, right? And obviously, you're the CEO and you're a co-founder of Bird. So when you were designing the tokenomics, what were you thinking about?
Well, I think there's a very powerful message that gets sent when you have a token that doesn't have a minting function in it, right? And that was really important to us. We wanted to make sure that it was very clear to the community we can't just go and create a whole bunch more of these Bird tokens. And I think that's sort of the first and foremost fact about our token. no mint function. There will never be more tokens in existence than exist today. I think when it comes to choosing supply, it's a very psychological process, and it's all art. There's a lot more art than science. So I'm not going to say that we've got some formula that led us to choosing the supply of Bird. But when you consider what governance is, I think there is a benefit to having a lower fixed supply than some of the other tokens that are out there. I think the other fact that's important to note about our token is we haven't kept a huge amount of these tokens. And I think that's one of the things that gives users a lot of confidence investing in our project so early. We can't just turn around and dump 80% of the supply on top of users when the market turns up. We have locked almost all of our team tokens. And some of them have already unlocked, and you can see it on Team Finance that we haven't even withdrawn many of those unlocked tranches. And a good chunk of our tokens are actually locked for many years, I believe 5 years to be exact. So having most of our tokens out in circulation and not in the hands of major investors or the team, I think gives people a lot of confidence that they can invest in this project early. Without running the risk of having VCs dump on them or the teams dump on them, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think when you talk about early investors getting in early, I think it's really, really early. I mean, if you look at the Bird is still a very low cap coin right now, and the max supply is 140,000, and the market cap is about 5 million. And if you consider the stuff you're doing, the analytics oracles, and then the lending product, and then the product for launch pads, and then the product for which are the product, the shopping product, and all these products, and then to think that the value is still under 10 million, I think it's a massive opportunity. Definitely.
I think so too. We are almost all engineers in one way or another. Our team is very technical. And so I think we've taken this mentality of, we're going to put our heads down, we're going to build some cool stuff, rather than just going and screaming from the rooftops of everything that Bird could be. So our marketing presence has been fairly minor for most of Bird's existence. We are just starting to switch gears, which is one of the reasons why I'm here talking to you now, David, is to start getting the word out to people. And if anyone looks at our last newsletter, there is a high-level plan that lays out the next couple of steps that we're considering for marketing. But yeah, I do believe that ultimately it's very early for Bird. I think that we have an incredibly exciting vision, and I don't think there's anyone else in crypto right now that is actually building on that same vision that we are. So I do think that this is a real opportunity for the people that have already gotten in, and for a lot of the people that are hopefully going to start learning about all the things that our amazing team is doing and will be doing.
Yeah, and I agree with you. You've got a very strong team, right? I read up a little bit, lots of engineers, as you've said. But one of the things about a product like this is it needs a lot of time to build the tools necessary to complete all the stuff that could be in the roadmap, right? To have all the products ready, and that obviously costs a lot of money. So I don't know, maybe if you don't mind to talk about a little bit of the funding and what are your plans moving forward.
Yeah, so we've been treasury funded from the start, and we're very lucky that many of our team members, if not all of them, have made sacrifices to join this team and to contribute because they see the vision. Right, you're willing to, maybe accept a pay cut or work some extra hours when you think you're solving a really exciting problem. I mean, that's the key. When you're a true engineer, you're attracted to problems first and money second. So I think we've had a lot of success with that. Each of our members also has, extensive network that they've developed in their career. And we can bring a lot of those resources to the table. I've got a couple of colleagues of mine that have joined the team, and more that will join the team in the future. So, I think that we have been able to make the progress that we've made to this point, bootstrapping. And I'm very proud of what we've done using those limited resources. And so now we're in the process of inflecting towards additional resources to help us grow. So we're in talks with different investors and other programs that can help us attract and utilize new resources. And that doesn't just mean money. It also means people. In fact, people are probably the most important part of this. Finding talented developers and engineers isn't easy. So we're in that process now of starting to really move into the next gear with Bird.
Yeah, I also think, I mean, if you look at Bitcoin, that's how Bitcoin grew, right? Bitcoin started off with bootstrapping, people working out of passion because it was a very important problem that they were solving, and people believed it was the future. And as a result, this whole industry has been created, right? Started off with Bitcoin. So I think, it's great that you're doing that. It's great that you've got the strong team that you have. I mean, yourself over 15 years experience and a very, very strong team as well of engineers and builders. So I think that's really, really great. John was asking about, he's saying, want to know, are you in talks with Gate.io about BSC and Solana withdrawals for retail investors to send their Bird tokens from Gate to BSC Solana for future community liquidity provision?
So we aren't yet in talks. Both of those launches are actually only a couple of weeks old at this point. And we do have a close relationship with Gate specifically, so I think we can probably work on that with them. But we do have our own bridging solution for BSC that we built custom. So you could, in theory, move back and forth on our architecture versus theirs for as long as they don't have BSC network withdrawals enabled. Solana, we use the wormhole, which is their decentralized cross-chain bridge. So, I think the short answer to the question is we don't have it yet, but we have close relationships with those exchanges, Gate specifically. So I think we could work with them on it.
Yeah, and then John so it says thank you as well. Thank you for the explanation of use cases of Bird analytics and tokens and more use cases. Yeah, but I would like to emphasize the point. I do think that the valuation is really, really low. I mean, and the total supply is 140,000 coins. It's a really small. And one of the things, like for me, the way that I look at investing in crypto, I think there's obviously two purposes, right? The first one is to get rich, to get really, really rich. The second one is obviously if you want to control the future of finance, you have to own a lot of these governance tokens. And the honest truth is, right, today, we know Ethereum is going to be a big player in future. But, if you want to, if you need 32 Ethereum to stake Ethereum, and that's not accessible to everybody. Right, but something like Bird, something early with a low market cap that shows massive, massive potential. You have a real opportunity to be very influential in the network, and I think almost anyone can be influential because I mean, I'm sure most people can afford one coin or two coins, even those who live on $1 a day.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good way of putting it, David. Aside from the potential for price appreciation, what we're doing is going to be an incredibly important component in the Web3 ecosystem in the coming years. And so if you are the type of person that says, man, I wish I could influence the algorithms behind my favorite websites because I have a disagreement with the way they're doing things, or I think they could be better, then yeah, you're absolutely right. You should be buying one of these Bird tokens now, or hell, buy 100 of them and make sure that you have your say in what online experience will look like, several years down the line when Web3 starts reaching its next level.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I mean, this is definitely the future, and if you want to be part of it, you've got to. I think now is the best time, and I do think that. I mean, even if you look at, for most people, they won't be very influential in Bitcoin. They can't be influential in Bitcoin, Ethereum, even Solana, even Cardano. It's very, very difficult because now the market cap is billions and billions of dollars. But something that's still early, I do think you've got you can have a big impact. Even if you're a small player, you can have a big impact.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think there's a different motive to have an impact in our platform versus another one, right? if you want to, for example, have influence over a trading platform like Uniswap or a lending platform like Aave or Make, or the application base there is limited, right? Uniswap isn't going to all of a sudden turn out to be a social network platform. They're a trading platform.
Yeah.
Well, Bird is likely going to be plugged into all kinds of different websites in the future. And so the governance influence that you can have is more likely to spread across all kinds of different areas of your online life with Bird governance versus
Yeah.
a platform with a very narrow use case.
Yeah, that's a powerful way to think about it. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, because I mean, like you said, it could power different use cases, right? Like lending, investing, and social networks, and you can have an impact on all of those if, because Bird is the plumbing behind all that all that stuff being built. So it's definitely powerful, definitely very powerful. And yeah, the amazing thing again is it's still very it's still very it's a micro cap, right? If you look at it, right? And I do think, in my opinion, I think it's definitely, the fundamentals are good enough for it to sit in the top 100. I think it's yeah, and top 100, the smallest coin last time I checked was a $1 billion valuation. So I think now is a great time to be doing research into learning into Bird, about learning more about Bird and about the use cases and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you, and
Yeah.
we definitely have top 100 aspirations. I think we have one of the most unique business propositions in crypto, and I think we are ahead of our time. I think the ecosystem that we're building right now may seem a bit idealistic or overly futuristic, a bit sort of up in the clouds. But tech moves fast, and
Yeah.
the people that are close to this ecosystem, people that have been around the tech world for a long time, they see our vision right away. And there's that light bulb moment for them too, when they go, wow, like I see how this is going to grow up, and Bird is the only business out there that is looking to solve this problem. And like you said, David, it's going to take time. These are complicated problems to solve. These are big products to build. So even if somebody does pop up tomorrow and starts looking at what we're doing and saying we should do it too, Bird is still going to have a huge head start on attracting the resources it takes to build this stuff, on doing the R&D it takes to make the plans, on building the models themselves, building the architecture like the Oracle networks, and getting on to the major blockchains. All that takes a lot of energy, a lot of resources, and Bird has already done a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. But that's why, again, I'll go back to what we spoke about earlier, that I think it's important to have some things proprietary.
Sure.
Because, but I mean, in a perfect world, open decentralized stuff should be fine. But if you look at what happened with Uniswap, how many other swaps are out there now? We just copy paste. I mean, shouldn't all that value accrue to the people who created the tech, or I don't know. It's a difficult question.
It is. And I think it's a question that tech at large is going to be confronting for the next decade or two. And I think we're still learning what it means to have an open source project. I think people will actually be kind of surprised at what in their tech lives are truly open source. Anyone that's used a Linux-based platform, that's open source. A lot of statisticians like myself, we use R and Python. Like these are ecosystems that have grown up and they've become incredibly powerful, and they've largely relied on network effect to maintain their top position. We need to start now learning how that works in a more for-profit setting, and I'm particularly very excited to see how decentralized technology develops along this question of open source. There's a lot of really smart people out there that are trying to answer these problems, and we don't intend to answer them all ourselves. We'll stand on their shoulders when they start coming up with new ideas, and we'll hopefully be able to work with a lot of these researchers that are trying to decide, how should this space evolve when it comes to open source technology.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, is there anything else that you're excited about in the crypto space outside of Bird?
Oh, you mean just personally?
Yeah, and as well, I'd like to know what are your long-term thoughts for the whole entire crypto space as well. Where do you think we'll be in 5 to 10 years?
Whew. So let me first start with the safe route. In 5 to 10 years, we will have more users, more money, more code, more everything. Crypto and decentralized technology is here to stay, and I don't think there's probably no one on this call right now that questions that. I think people that really peel back the hood and look inside and understand what this stuff is doing, they're believers right away. So let's just sort of get that out of the way. I personally am most excited to see what DLT does in second and third world countries. I think, I have a lot of conversations with my friends. I'm fortunate enough to live in America. And a lot of times when I'm talking about what decentralized technology does, people just go, why do I care about that? And, my response is always the same. Well, like when you go down to the bank and you deposit your check, you're not worried that check will be either worthless or stolen from you when it's in an American bank. But for a lot of people around the world, that's not the case. They can't trust either their monetary policy locally or their banking infrastructure locally. And being able to use these worldwide networks that are trustless is a true game changer. Things like microfinance, being able to lift people out of poverty, the leveling of the playing field that decentralized technology performs is truly incredible. Right now, if you want to trade derivatives and get into some of these really exotic instruments, you need to, in the United States, you need to actually have either a license or be already rich. That doesn't make any sense to me. Decentralized technology is going to empower the little guy in ways that no other technology has done since really the formation of the internet. And those are areas that I'm particularly very excited to see how they play out.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered almost everything. Is there anything else that we haven't covered?
No, I don't think so. I think we've talked about all the big points. Really happy to be able to share all the cool stuff our team is doing. Really proud of everything that we've built, and I can't wait to see what we're going to turn out in the next couple of weeks and months.
Yeah. Amazing stuff. Amazing. So I think we can close it up here. Links are in the description for if you want to learn more about Bird. We've got the Discord, the Telegram, and the website, all that stuff. And you can, I think it's a no-brainer right now. I think it's really, the price is really cheap. I think, yeah, if you want a bit of action to be part of the future of finance, I think protocols like this, you got to be part of it. That's what I think. Obviously, this is not financial advice, right? Do your own research. You gotta do your own research. And big thank you to Daniel. Thank you, man. Thank you for coming on and educating us about Bird. Thank you very, very much. And also thank you to Luciano, right? He's a growth director at Bird. He really did a lot of work to make this happen. So thank you, Luciano. Thank you to Bird, the Bird community, showing us some love, coming onto the stream and watching. Thank you. And thank you to Crypto Power Talk, our community as well, for jumping on and showing us some love. Thank you very much. I think that's about it. Thank you guys, and see you again next time. Anything else, Daniel?
No, that's it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for your time, David. Look forward to continuing talking with you in the future.
Thank you. Awesome. Just hold on. Just hold on for a minute. Just close. Just thanks.